A single sentence can pull apart years of comment in this moment, inside the quiet halls of Downton Abbey. That sentence is, "We fought like cats." It's raw, it's honest. And it cracks open a truth the characters can no longer hide. This isn't just a small argument. It's the moment when long-buried feelings finally claw their way to the surface. The walls of Downton Abbey have seen joy, heartbreak, and endless whispers of secrets. But today, the air carries something much heavier. Before the words "we fought like cats" are even spoken, you can feel the tension building like a storm, waiting to break. The grand rooms, usually glowing with warm comfort, suddenly seem colder, as if even the house senses a shift coming. In this moment, the characters involved are walking a thin line. Their feelings are bruised and their pride is wounded. You can almost hear the silence pressing down on them as they stand face to face, trying to hold themselves together. One of them takes a slow breath, trying to keep control, while the other stares with a mix of frustration and fear. Neither wants this fight, but both know it can't be avoided anymore. There's a quiet pause. It's a kind that makes your heart beat louder in your own ears. It's the kind of pause that comes right before someone decides to tell the truth. A truth that hurts. A truth that reveals how deep the cracks in their relationship have grown. They've ignored the signs for months, small comments, quick looks, little doubts, but now, everything they pushed aside comes crashing back. And when the line finally falls, "We fought like cats," it isn't said with anger. It's said with exhaustion, with the tired honesty of someone who's done pretending. Those 3 words cut through the room, exposing how messy their bond has become. Suddenly, their disagreement is no longer just about the issue at hand. It's about years of misunderstandings, missed chances, and unspoken fears. The room feels smaller now, the walls closer. You can see in their eyes that this moment is bigger than either of them planned. The fight isn't just a fight, it's a mirror showing them what they've become. And as they stand there, breathing hard from an argument that left emotional scratches, both seem to realize the same thing. This moment will change everything going forward. There is a split second after the words are spoken, when everything seems to freeze. It's almost as if the world slows down just long enough for both characters to finally hear themselves. "We fought like cats" isn't just an explanation. It isn't even an apology. It's a confession. A confession that the calm surface they tried to protect has already shattered. Long before this moment, the silence that follows is heavy, but this time it's different. It isn't the tense quiet that comes before a fight. It's the quiet after a truth has landed, the kind that makes people face what they've been avoiding. One character looks away, unable to hold eye contact. That small movement says more than any dramatic speech could. It's a sign of defeat, of admitting that the argument drained them more than they want to admit. Their shoulders drop just slightly, a small sign of surrender in a battle neither of them wanted. The other character doesn't move at first. They stand still, watching, reading the tiny signals that reveal everything. The trembling fingers, the uneven breath, the softened expression. Slowly, they realized the fight wasn't really about pride or stubbornness. It was about fear. Fear of losing each other, fear of change, fear of facing what the future might look like now that their safe world has begun to crack apart. Even the room seems to shift with them, as if it exhaled the tension they had filled it with. The rich wooden walls, the framed portraits, the soft glow of the lamps, all of it now feels like a witness to a moment too personal to ignore. Downton Abbey has always been a stage for family drama, but this moment feels different. It feels more fragile, more human. This isn't a performance or a clash of strong personalities. It's 2 people admitting that they're hurting, and beneath the hurt is something even deeper. Love. Complicated, stubborn, imperfect love. The kind that makes fights happen because the emotions run too deep to stay quiet. The kind that refuses to let go even when everything seems broken. As the confession hangs in the air, the characters reach a turning point. They must choose whether this moment will tear them further apart or pull them closer than they've been in a long time. The fight is over, but the decision what comes next has only just begun. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. But silence in this room is not empty. It's full of unspoken feelings that finally have space to breathe. There's a shift. a soft and almost invisible change in the way they stand, the way they look at each other. It's like the fight peeled back a layer neither of them expected, exposing the quiet wounds they've both been carrying. One character's eyes soften first, not in a dramatic, sudden way, but in the gentle way. A storm slowly fades after hours of rain. You can see the fatigue in their face, the kind that doesn't come from physical exhaustion but from holding too many emotions inside for too long. Their voice, when it finally breaks the silence, isn't sharp or defensive, it's low, almost trembling, as if every word might reveal too much. And maybe that's the point. Maybe revealing too much is exactly what needs to happen now. The other character listens with a stillness that feels new. Before, every disagreement was met with quick replies, fast reactions, and stubborn resistance. But now their posture changes, less rigid, less guarded. They're not preparing to argue. They're preparing to understand. And that small shift is more powerful than anything they said during the fight. For the first time in a long time, both of them are present, not just in the room, but in the moment. What makes this scene so striking is how human it is. The bitterness that came out earlier now feels like a shield they were both hiding behind. A shield made of pride, fear, and old frustrations. But shields can only be held up for so long, and now, with them lowered, their vulnerability shows. And that vulnerability speaks louder than the fight ever did. There's something deeply relatable in this moment, the realization that sometimes we hurt the people we care about not because we want to, but because we don't know how else to express what scares us. And beneath all the harsh words lies a truth they're both too tired to deny. They never wanted to drift apart. They never meant to turn small worries into big battles. As the tension gradually lifts, the atmosphere changes. The room feels warmer again, as though the house itself senses the emotional shift. The characters begin to see each other not as opponents, but as two people who have been struggling in their own ways. Their anger doesn't vanish, it settles. It becomes something they can finally look at without letting it control them. And in this quiet, tender space, they stand on the edge of something important: understanding. The cracks between them are still there, but now they can see through them clearly. They see the truth, the pain, and the possibility of healing if they choose it. There comes a moment in every relationship, family, friendship, or love, when silence becomes heavier than any spoken argument. That's exactly what fills the room now. Not anger, not pride, just the weight of everything they never said. And in this quiet, something unexpected begins to rise. Honesty. Real, unfiltered honesty that neither of them dared to reveal until the fight forced open the door. One character takes a small step forward, almost without thinking. It's the kind of movement that comes from instinct rather than intention. A pull toward the person who once felt safe. It's familiar, irreplaceable. Their voice, when it breaks the silence, is soft but clear. Not defensive, not sharp, just truthful. They admit things they've hidden for months: the fear of disappointing the other, pressure of living up to expectations, the loneliness that crept in even while standing side by side. These confessions aren't dramatic or loud. They're simple. And because they're simple, they hit harder. The other character listens. Really listens, with an expression that slowly shifts from surprise to understanding. Their face softens, their breath slow, and you can see the realization settling in. They weren't the only one hurting. They weren't the only one afraid. For the first time, they see the other person not as someone who fought against them, but someone who fought beside them for far too long without support. What makes this moment powerful isn't the spoken words alone, it's the emotion behind them. It's the tremble in the voice, the hesitant pauses, the way their eyes dart down, as if admitting the truth is harder than the fight ever was. This is vulnerability at its purest, the kind that breaks down walls without anyone raising their voice. The kind that says, "I never wanted to push you away. I just didn't know how to hold on." Slowly, the second character begins to speak too. Their confession is different, shaped by their own fears: the fear of losing control, the fear of change, the fear that admitting weakness would make everything crumble. But now, standing in this shared space of truth, Those fears feel smaller, manageable, human. They explain why they reacted with sharp words. Why they built emotional distance? Why every small disagreement felt like a mountain instead of a pebble? And for the first time, both of them understand the real source of their conflict. It wasn't selfishness. It wasn't pride. It was pain deep, quiet pain that twisted into arguments because neither knew how to express it gently. As the truth finally settles between them, the atmosphere shifts from heavy to fragile. There's a moment small, quiet, almost invisible when everything shifts. It isn't marked by a dramatic gesture or a grand speech. It happens in the soft space between breaths, in the way their eyes finally meet without fear. This is the turning point. Not because they suddenly agree on everything, but because they finally understand each other in a way they never allowed themselves to before. The atmosphere in the room feels different now. The sharpness from earlier has melted into something gentler, something warmer. It's as if the house itself senses the change and decides to breathe with them. The shadows on the walls soften. The tension in the air loosens. Even the silence feels kinder. It's no longer heavy with judgment, but open enough to allow healing to slip through. One character takes a slow breath, the kind that sounds like they are trying to let go of something painful. And then, almost cautiously, they share a memory, something small, something simple, but something that mattered deeply. It's a reminder of who they were before fear and pride built walls around them. This memory becomes a bridge, a way back to the version of themselves that cared more and worried less. The other character listens closely, and for the first time, a small smile flickers soft, unsure but genuine. It's a sign of connection returning, like a light turning on in a room long left dark. They take a step closer, not enough to erase the distance completely, but enough to show they want to close the gap. It's a silent promise. I'm trying. I'm here. I want this to get better. What makes this turning point so unique is that it doesn't rely on perfect words or flawless understanding. Instead, it rests on the simplest truth. They both still care. Even after the harsh words, even after the emotional damage, even after feeling lost, there is still a thread connecting them. Fragile, but unbroken. Their voices grow calmer as they speak. The anger that once pushed them apart now shifts into honesty that pulls them closer. They begin to see the fight not as a sign of failure, but as a sign of how much they mean to each other. People don't fight this hard unless something important is at stake. And for them, the bond they share is worth every difficult moment. Slowly, the distance between them closes. Not just physically, but emotionally. They start acknowledging their mistakes, not with blame, but with humility. They accept their fears without hiding. They admit their flaws without shame. And in doing so, they begin to rebuild something stronger than what existed before. This scene becomes the quiet heart of their journey, a moment where broken pieces begin to fit together again. A moment when hurt starts to turn into hope. A moment when two people, battered by conflict, realize that they still have the choice to reach for each other. It's the moment that proves healing doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it comes in a whisper, in a pause, in a gentle look that says, "We're not done. Not yet." There are moments in life when healing doesn't look like a grand apology or a sudden transformation. Sometimes healing begins in the softest ways, through a gentle tone. A lowered shoulder, a quiet breath shared between two people who once stood on opposite sides of an invisible battle. That's exactly what fills the room now. A slow, steady, almost fragile return to peace. The silence no longer carries the sharp edges of anger. Instead, it feels warm, like a blanket carefully placed over old wounds. One character shifts slightly, not with tension, but with relief, as if the fight had been holding their body hostage. Their shoulders loosen, their hands unclench, and their eyes move with a kind of softness that wasn't there before. It's the first true sign that they're ready to try again, not to erase the past, but to move forward in spite of it. The other character notices this change, and something gentle rises inside them. They step closer, just enough to close the emotional distance that once felt like a canyon. Not too close to overwhelm, but close enough to show, "I'm not your enemy." I never was. A small nod passes between them, teeny, easy to miss, but full of meaning. It's a quiet acknowledgement of everything they've gone through. Everything they've revealed, everything they still care about. Their voices soften, taking on a tone that feels more like conversation and less like conflict. They start talking about the little things, mundane details. Simple observations, because sometimes the easiest way to rebuild trust is to talk about the things that don't hurt. These small exchanges act like stitches, sewing together the torn edges of their bond. It's slow, delicate work, but it's real. And beneath the simplicity lies something deeper. Shared understanding that they both played a part in the tension. There is no villain here, no true winner or loser. Just two people who finally admit they have been hurting. This realization becomes a calm space for them to breathe together, side by side, without the weight of blame pressing down on either of them as the minutes pass. The room seems to grow brighter, not through lighting, but through emotion. The kind of brightness that comes when two people rediscover kindness between them. The kind of warmth that suggests forgiveness is no longer a distant dream, but a reachable choice. Every subtle smile, every softened breath, every unguarded glance becomes a sign that healing is already taking shape. Even the house feels different now. Where earlier it seemed to echo their anger, now the walls seem to hold their hope gently. This space, once filled with conflict, transforms into a quiet sanctuary for understanding. A place where two wounded hearts begin to beat in harmony again. Slowly, cautiously, but strongly enough to matter. And in this fragile peace, something important becomes clear. The fight did not break them, it revealed them. It stripped away the defenses, the assumptions, the fear, and left behind only the truth. A truth that says they still need each other. They still value each other. And they still have a reason to hold on. Healing doesn't happen all at once. But in this moment, with small gestures and soft words, it begins. As the room settles into this new, gentle calm, something remarkable happens, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet strength that feels far more powerful. The last traces of tension melt into a peaceful stillness. Their breaths fall into the same rhythm. Their expressions soften into something that looks almost like relief. This is not a perfect ending, but it is a true one, an ending built on honesty, courage, and the willingness to try again. One character finally speaks, and their voice is steady in a way it hasn't been since the argument began. They don't offer a long apology or a grand promise. Instead, they speak a simple truth, that they want things to be better, and they are ready to put in the effort it takes. It's the kind of admission that carries more weight than any dramatic gesture, small sentence with the power to reshape their future. The other character listens with a softness that wasn't there before. They meet the words with their own quiet acceptance, not rushing, not resisting, just letting the moment settle. They admit their own faults, their own fears, their own hopes for something healthier between them. There's no rush to fix everything in one breath. They understand now that healing is not a sprint, it is a slow walk taken together. One step at a time, the air between them shifts again, this time into something warm and hopeful. They share a look that says more than any speech could. It's a look of forgiveness, not the instant kind that forgets everything, but the patient kind that chooses to move forward despite the past. It's a look that says, I still care. I still choose you. I'm still here. The room feels different too, almost as if Downton Abbey itself recognizes the change. The walls, once heavy with emotion, now seem to hum with quiet approval. This house has witnessed countless arguments, reconciliations, and confessions, but this moment feels personal, intimate. Like a turning point meant only for the two who stand within it, as they finally step closer. The distance that once divided them dissolves. Not because their problems are solved, because they now understand something essential. The fight wasn't a sign of failure. It was a sign of how deeply they mattered to each other. Their conflict forced them to confront truths they never dared to speak, and in doing so, gave them a chance to rebuild something stronger than before leaving the room. One of them offers a small gesture, a touch on the arm, a nod, a barely there smile. Something simple, but filled with emotion. The other returns it with equal care. And in that second, their bond feels renewed, fragile, yet powerful. Like a candle just lit after a long night. When they walk away from this moment, they carry with them a new understanding. The words "we fought like cats once" felt like a mark of brokenness. Now they stand as proof of bravery, the bravery to face each other, to admit fear, to speak truth, and to choose connection over pride, and though the future may bring new challenges. This moment becomes their quiet anchor, a reminder that even in the hardest fights there can be a path back to each other if both hearts choose it.